I never knew, I never knew, I never knew, I never knew, never knew, ooh, never knew, ooh, never. I never knew, I never knew, I never knew. Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to my channel. I'm Charlene. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, okay? Whew, I'm out of breath. All I did was a little two-step, a little boom, boom, pow, and I'm out of breath. See, I need to start working out more. All right, so it's been a minute, but I'm back, okay? And Pose, FX's Pose is doing things to me. It's doing things to me, okay? And so right now we're on season 2, episode 4, okay? And this episode was crazy, okay? I teared up a little bit. I laughed a little bit. I teared up a lot, actually. It was a lot, okay? So Pose season 2, episode 4 opens up with ballroom, okay? They're performing, you know, there's a certain category, and Miss Candy, who I love, okay, one of the fishiest, feministest looking sisters up on Pose. But I love Candy, and Candy busts out on the scene in the middle of the ball with her outfit. It didn't really have nothing to do with the category, but Candy was like, you know what, bitch, this is what the fuck I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do. Of course, Pray Tell is throwing shade. The queens, you know, giving the scoreboard, was throwing shade at Candy, and Candy was like, bitch, look at me. I'm this shit, and I got something to offer, and you're gonna see. Okay? So Pray Tell goes along, and she's basically, is basically saying, you know, that he's gonna have a meeting with some of the ball founders or whoever they were. They were having a meeting about adding categories and just the movement and the flow of the ball. Okay, so Miss Candy calls herself showing up and sneaking, you know, and I love me a drag. Can I just say I love gay people? Now, gay people get on my everlasting motherfucking nerve, just like black people, white people, purple people, dogs, everybody get on my nerves, but I love gay people. You know, they're so creative. But anyway, Candy's eavesdropping, you know, in the seat next to them, and she peeks her head around the corner. She says, you know what I think what a popping category will be? Lip singing. What queens are known for. What RuPaul's Drag Race, the foundation of RuPaul's Drag Race, okay? Miss Candy comes up with the iconic idea of doing lip singing. And of course, Pray Tell, hating ass, you know, shot down her dream and made it seem like, you know, it wasn't a good idea. And Candy was like, you know what? First of all, she was ragtagging Pray Tell ass. See, I like Candy. She was ragtagging Pray Tell's ass. You know, and she was like, bitch, you gonna see one day, you know. Episode went on, nothing too exciting for real, until Miss Puerto Rican Fish, Candy's best friend, I don't know her name, I'm just going to call her La Cienega. Miss La Cienega comes to Blanca, because everybody goes to Blanca whenever there's something bad happen. Electra, her children, La Cienega, all these, they all go to Blanca. They all go to Blanca when something bad happens. So La Cienega goes to Blanca, and she's like, you know what, Candy's been missing. And I know Candy's been doing some sex work, and I know Candy's been doing some under the table type stuff, because we've been poor and we need the money. And of course, this is Blanca. Blanca is not for the shit. Blanca would rather scrub tables, scrub walls, iron curtains. She'd rather do that than to do sex work, because number one, she's suffering with her, you know, AIDS virus, but also, you know, she just thinks that her peers are better than that, okay? So although it was hard for La Cienega to tell her, you know, Candy's been doing sex work, she still came to Blanca because she knows Blanca is the person that everybody goes to when they're going through shit. And so they go to the hotel. The hotel owner's being a dick. and giving, you know, the queens a hard time, giving Blanca and La Cienega a hard time. Blanca was smart enough to leave her contact information, and, you know, the nosy-ass white man at the front desk ended up going up to the room. You know, he didn't have enough common courtesy to go and check in the room while they were there, but because he wanted to be nosy, he went and checked the room or he sent somebody up to check the room, and lo and behold, they found Miss Candy's body in the closet. Looked like the girl was beat, choked, and left in the room. Obviously, La Cienega, you know, and Angel and Blanca and Poppy and all of her peers that she hung out with and went to the ball with, they were all very hurt, very sad, and you know, rightfully so. Candy was an important member. You know, she had a lot of sass, and you know, for that ass, but you know, she was loved. Okay, now, as I'm watching the show, I ain't gonna lie, I was thinking, you know, damn, they had to kill the dark-skinned girl. Like, they had to, you know, they had to have the chocolate, loud, you know, boisterous black girl. She had to get murdered. But after I watched the episode, I started doing some research and come to find out, Candy is actually moving on to other acting scenes where I don't believe she's going to be playing a transgender woman. And I think that's kind of like the goal of transgender women and transgender men, is to play roles of real women and play roles of real men. That's the whole point. They'll take the acting jobs that require them to act as themselves, which are transgender people. But I think that when a man transitions to a woman, and when a woman transitions to a man, they are doing so because that's how they identify. So I think that ultimately, you know, transgender people, they want to take on roles acting as how they feel, which is, you know, either a man or a woman. So I think that Candy, her character, you know, not her character, but I think Candy, the person, is actually moving on to other acting roles that requires her to just be a woman, and not a transgender woman, but a woman. And I think that's what she wants, because that's what she is. She's a woman. She's transitioned. She's not a man. She's a woman. She's transitioned to that, and she wants to play that. So that's fine. So, but before I found out that Miss Candy had her acting career expanded, I'm like, why they had to kill the black girl? You know, and I'm not trying to pull the race card in this and the third, but it is kind of ironic. Blanca is, you know, the sweet, loving, you know, she wants everything to kind of work out, and she's so nice, and she takes everybody in, and she gives good advice. And then you have Electra, which is her opposite, tall, dark-skinned, with the attitude and the boisterous, you know, personality, and the go-getter, and, you know, I don't give a fuck about you type attitude. You know, I think that's mighty funny. I think it's mighty funny how the model, you know, is Angel. I think it's mighty funny how Damon and his boyfriend Ricky, I think, yeah, Ricky. It's funny how Damon is the whimsical, you know, docile, you know, ballet dancer, and he, you know, he's so naive. And then Ricky, the brown skinned one, is the dancer who's cheating and going out and having sex with all these dudes. And Ricky's the one that left the house of Blanca's house and went to Electra's house. And Ricky's the down low, you know, the dirty down low one. And Damon, the light skinned one, is, you know, so this and so that. I'm like, I know it ain't no damn colorism up in Pose. But, you know, as I've, you know, watched interviews and watched Paris is Burning, which I love that documentary. It's so inspiring. That documentary inspires me because I'm an artist. I am a writer, you know, a mini photographer. I'm just getting started with the photography thing, with the video editing and things like that. So I'm an artist, and I want to do a documentary of my own. So Paris is Burning documentary, I love that documentary. And just that, and viewing interviews that actors from Paris is Burning, watching those interviews, you know, it was a lot of colorism even back in the, you know, you would think that in the gay world, when gay people were considered the freaks of the world, you know, whether you was black or white, if you was gay, you was trash, you was garbage. I mean, I'm pretty sure white people got treated, you know, white gays got treated better. But still, you understand my point. So, you know, it is baffling to think, like, damn, like, y'all was racist within the tranny, you know, the transgender and gay and lesbian community. Like, it was racism between gay people and transgenders and cross-dressers. Like, that's crazy to me, but there was. So I'm sitting thinking, I'm like, you know, damn, like, it's colorism up in Pose? Because I think it's mighty funny. And even Pray Tell, who Pray Tell is one of the main characters. But Pray Tell, he got an attitude problem. He's snippy. He's snappy. He'll cuss a bitch out. So, he's shady. So it's kind of like, it's mighty funny how the light-skinned characters are the models and, the this and the that. And the dark-skinned, the dark-skinned queens are, attitude and this and sex work and this and getting murdered. But, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Let me know in the comment section what you think about that, okay? But anyway, Kandi was murdered, and transgender women, gay men, gay women, they have been murdered. And especially transgender women, they've been murdered a lot, and a lot of times the murderers go, unfound. They never solved the crime. They never even really cared to. So, it was really sad to see that Kandi was murdered and was found in a hotel room. And I felt like that scene was kind of reminiscent of Paris is Burning because Venus Extravaganza, I believe that's her name, who was the blonde, the really petite femme queen in Paris is Burning, she was actually murdered and strangled to death and beat to death in a hotel room and found, she wasn't found in the closet, but I believe she was found under the hotel room bed. So that kind of scene was kind of reminiscent to how Venus Extravaganza was killed in real life in that documentary. So I don't know if they were paying homage to that, but yeah, that was crazy. But the funeral aspect was crazy. Everybody had a chance to kind of have conversations with Kandi's spirit, okay? And I feel like she talked to, a lecturer, and she talked to Blanca, and she talked to different ones, but I would say that the two interactions with Kandi, and, when she was in the casket, but spiritually, I guess, she was talking to these people, I would say the two that stuck out to me was the conversations that she had with her parents, and the conversation that she had with her best friend, the Puerto Rican girl, the best friend, I don't know her name right now, so I've been calling her La Cienega. Those two interactions, in her spirit were interesting to me. So I'll start with her parents. So her parents passed, and not her parents passed, she passed. So her parents actually came and showed up to the funeral. Obviously, everybody in the funeral, they were shocked to see Kandi's parents because everybody knows gay people, especially back in the day, were disowned by their parents, especially if you were transgender, not just gay, but if you were a man transitioning to a woman and vice versa, your parents disowned you. So the fact that her parents even showed up, everybody in the funeral was like, damn, they showed up, they came. And I remember Angel, she kind of felt some type of way because she wasn't responsible for reaching out to her parents, and she thought that her parents weren't going to come. So she felt like, she failed, and she failed Kandi, and she didn't do her job. But they ultimately showed up. And when they walked up and Kandi's spirit, began to talk to her mom, and she was asking her mom, why'd you treat me like this? I thought you were my ally. We always had so much fun. And, why'd you treat me like this? Why'd you disown me? Why did you throw me away? And I think it was very powerful when the mom was like, I thought you were just creative, gay at worst. Which is funny that she said that worse, but she said, when I saw the, the little things you would do as a child, I thought you would just be, creative and, at the very least gay, but I just didn't know how to deal with my son telling me that he wants to be a girl and that he's going to start the process to transition himself from being a male to a woman. And she said, there was no guidelines. There were no books. There were no, YouTube videos. There were no, organization. There was no guidelines for me as a mother to deal with a child like you. And I thought that was very monumental because I feel like, a lot of gay and transgender people that were born, especially back in those times, that were born in the 50s and the 60s and were young adults in the 80s and the 90s, if they're still living, I think that might be a very kind of closure type scene, because at the end of the day, being transgender it's not a normalcy. I feel like it's becoming a normalcy, but it's not normal. And I feel like even today, when somebody's child may come to them and say, I feel this way, with the internet, with organization groups, with all this resources, even if a parent isn't as aware, there's so many places where people can go to get knowledge, and it's kind of going on with a lot of people. So, you may, go to the, the lady who lives 2 blocks up the street because her son's going through the same thing. But I feel like back in the day, it was such a, taboo type. They just didn't know how to handle it. So I think that scene was very powerful because, the mother was saying, I could have dealt with you being creative. I could have even dealt with you being gay. Because being a lesbian and being a gay man was kind of even, it was shunned upon, but it was a kind of little bit more understood, and it was a little bit more, okay, you're gay. But the transgender thing, with the transitioning, especially in the 80s and the 90s, I could really understand and see how a parent just kind of didn't, it's just like, just go away. Like, it's hurtful. And it's not right. But I think that scene was needed and that dialogue was needed. Because like I said, today, if a child goes to their parents and expresses these things to their parents, it's a little bit more resources out here for a parent to understand what their child's going through. Let me fix this camera. But even, it's a lot more resources out here for a parent to educate themselves and then deal accordingly with their child. So I thought that was powerful. And I also thought it was cute when she had that conversation with her parents and, with her father, and her father was like, I always loved you. I didn't understand you. And Candy basically was saying, how, her father did things for her that she never forgot. And, all around, it was just a great scene. I think that dialogue between her parents, the fact that her parents showed up, and the fact that, Candy got to talk to her parents and kind of had that semi-closure with her parents, I teared up. I did tear up with that. Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm going to actually add somebody to that 3 people that stood out to me. Pratel's conversation, her parents, and La Cienega, okay? So I'm going to move to Pretel. When Candy was saying, Pretel, why did you give me a hard time? Why did you give me a hard time? Why were you always criticizing me? Why were you always doing these things to me? Why? And Pretel was like, you know what? Because I was jealous of you, bitch. And honestly, at that point, I started tearing up. Because, growing up all in my life, I always felt like, I was being nitpicked at. I always felt like, this person over here could do this, that, and the third. And it would be whatever. But if I did just half of that, it would be magnified. I would suffer the extreme consequences of it. And it was so relatable when Pretel was like, you're loud. You're unapologetic. You're yourself. You're unique. Like, you're different. Like, you don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks. You do you. And I envy that. And, I got really emotional because, growing up, like I said myself, I was always loud. I was always extra. I was always different. I always knew how to make the best out of certain situations. And I always felt like people criticized me for that. And people always found fault with me for that. And people always, I could do this, but it could have been better, or anything. And I just always felt like, I always got the shorter end of the stick. And by Pretel saying, I envy that about you. It kind of was amazing because I feel that sometimes. I feel like people that critique me, give me a hard time, always want to come down on me. I feel like at the end of the day, they wish they could have the balls I had. They wish that they could be the go-getter, the nothing can stop me attitude. They wish they could have that I have. You know what I'm saying? I've never really had much, but I always made the best of situations. I remember having conversations with people that I used to go to high school with. And I went through a lot in high school, a lot of crazy shit. But when I went to school, I made the best of my situations and I lived life, And I had a friend from high school say, girl, I didn't even know you were going through all of the stuff that you were going through in high school because you could never tell. Because I never let shit break me down. I always fucking would. If my mom was doing whatever she was doing in the house, when I woke up in the morning, I put on my clothes and I went to school and I made the best of my day while I wasn't at home until I had to go back to the hellhole. And so I feel like people don't like that. People can't be themselves. People can't be loud. People can't be expressive. They can't be original. And they hate that. So that dialogue that Pretel and Candy had, I think it was awesome. And I think, when Candy said, I forgive you. You sitting here at my funeral, you on the front seat, you hosting, at the end of the day, you didn't have to be here, and we still family, and even though you gave me a hard time, I forgive you. But I think it's amazing because Pray Tell was like, everything that you are, Candy, is what I want to be. You walk out in the daylight, you're fishy, you're confident, you on your shit, you're unapologetic, you move forward, and you are everything that I want to be. And I felt that. Because the same people that criticized me and the same people that used to put me down, the same people that would tell me that my ideas were this and critique my ideas are the same ones that praise me now. So I felt that. And the last scene I wanted to talk about with this episode was with La Cienega. So La Cienega goes up to pay her respects to Candy's body in the casket, and she's, talking to herself in her head, and she's like, damn, I'm gonna miss you, girl, so many good times. And as the scene's going on and she's thinking, she starts getting angry, and she starts snatching brooches off of Candy and snatching gloves, and bitch, this was mine, you were always jealous of me. So then she runs out of the funeral ceremony, and she sits out on the bench out front. She sparks a cigarette, and she's just kind of calming down. Then Candy appears, and Candy goes, bitch, this funeral is going to be the talk of the town for a while, thanks to you being all dramatic in there. Then La Cienega goes, and she says, you were a bitch to me, you were mean to me, you were always jealous of me because I was light-skinned and thick. La Cienega, you do know Candy's more fishy than you, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Now, La Cienega is gorgeous. I love La Cienega. Is damn. She's a gorgeous woman. But bitch, if you look hard enough, bitch, I can clock you. I don't know if anybody. I can clock you, girl. At the end of the day, Candy is more fishy than you. She's smaller. She's more petite. Candy is gorgeous. Very fishy and very passing. So when La Cienega was like, oh, you always hated me because I was light-skinned and thick and I used it to my... And you know what? Like I said, I know colorism, I know race it's always been a thing ever since the beginning of the time. So, it doesn't surprise me that it's in the gay... It surprises me and doesn't surprise me that it's in the gay community. So I get that. But bitch... Candy is more fishy than you. So even if she was jealous of your light skin and jealous of your thickness, at the end of the day, Candy's more fishy than you. So that was kind of irritating when she said that. But when Candy started reminiscing on all the times that she had, La Cienega had no choice but to be like, you know what, bitch, you was my ride or die. And when the lecturer wasn't here, and when my parents weren't here, and when my siblings and my so-called friends weren't here, you was the one here laying in negative 20 degrees, body to body with me. You was the one that was hitting licks, robbing so we can look our best. You were the one who I was winning trophies, snatching trophies with, bitch. So, you might have had a little attitude, but you still that bitch. And I love that scene as well, because I feel like I do have some friends sometimes where they're like, you're a bitch and you're this. Yeah, I might be mean. I might be a bitch. But when you was going through some of the hardest times in your life, who was there? Mean attitude and bitchy and all. Me. I might not have been swirly, lovey-dovey, moochy kissy, but when it motherfucking paid off, I'll always have the people I care for's backs. So just because I'm not sweet, lovey-dovey, don't mean that, I ain't passionate. And so I think once La Cienega started really thinking and started really turning her wheels, I think that she started realizing, I'm gonna miss this girl. I'm gonna miss her. And, the episode was just sad. But, the episode ended with Pray Tell and the ball executives officially making Candy's idea of lip singing an official category in every single ball that they will have from moving on forward. So Candy's presence, even though, she got dogged out a lot, Candy's presence will live on. And again, you know, I kind of am frustrated with the way Candy died. You know, the dark skinned girl. You know, the dark. You couldn't make her be discovered and as a model like Angel was. And that's how I know she had to make her exit somehow from the show, because like I said, she's moving on to other ventures. So you couldn't, you know, Candy couldn't find a model deal. Candy couldn't find a model deal and go and start modeling and never come back, you know, and move out of state or something. That couldn't be her storyline. Her storyline had to be death, the dark skinned girl. Angel was a model, and from my research, the first transgender model that ever was on an official magazine cover was a black woman named Tracy Norman, I believe. She wasn't biracial. She wasn't white. She wasn't Puerto Rican. She wasn't Asian. She wasn't Hawaiian. She wasn't Vietnamese. She was black. So if anything, you could have made Miss Candy a model and had her been discovered by some model scouts and moved to LA. That could have been Candy's storyline instead of her dying. Now, do I think that you guys are paying homage to Venus Electra's extravaganza's story? Yes, I do. But I feel like, you know, with colorism and the way that it is, you know, you could have had Candy go out a different way. It's always the black girls that have to be loud, boisterous, get the low scores, ain't fishy enough, ain't good enough, ain't this, the bitch, the angry one, and the ones that die brutally. So that's that on that. I love Pose. I like the show a lot. This episode was a lot. So take it in, comment, let me know what you think. What you think of my review, what you think of the show. Like, comment, share my videos, subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you later.